To our opening show, I'd like to welcome an old friend of mine. Used to do a podcast with him back in the day, or I used to join his podcast back in the day. So he's probably the most appropriate first guest for me to have. My good friend, Martin Forrester, huge NFL fan, big rugby fan as well. So we talk sports most weeks, I think. For people that have never physically met, we talk more than I talk to a lot of people. So welcome to the news show. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Mine's a bit blown after Friday and Monday, but good to join you. I remember with fondness the times on the podcast. There's no doubt that you brought the level up a few standards when you joined us on the Scottish podcast, so much appreciated.
It's no problem at all. Hopefully you can return a favour. Look, let's just jump straight in. You're a 49ers fan. 49ers, I think, broke the internet at the end of the week. I know a lot of people were complaining because they kind of timed the deal. It's always the way, right? You time the deal, and then some people have already had their shows, and so they've got to wait all the way until Monday. Some people were able to kind of rock and roll it, but it was a big talk of the whole weekend. You guys kicked it off, moving from 12 to 3. Where was you when you heard the news, and how did you react?
Mate, I was literally doing housework. Friday's always my day off, so I'm there with a mop and bucket. And the other hosts of the old podcast actually messaged me saying, you've traded up to 3. And I'm just like, nonsense, you're not going to catch me out like that. And sure enough, looking at the notifications that were coming in, I was just, where'd that come from? Because we've never even been mentioned as a possibility of trading up from 12. So I have to admit, I never even looked at the quarterbacks for this year because I never thought the 49ers were going to have a chance. So that's an aggressive move for certain. And when I first heard about it, I was a bit shocked because I have to admit I'm a bit of a Jimmy G fan. Some would call it an apologist, but I think he's a good quarterback. I think he's definitely a top 15 quarterback. But then the more I think about it, the more I actually like it. The thinking is we've got a strong squad. Last year, a few injuries really did scupper us. You lose people like Bosa, Solomon Thomas on the same day, on the same game, within 3 minutes of each other. Sherman's gone for the majority of it. And the fact is, we probably outdid ourselves with the wins we got. Jimmy G's gone for the majority of it as well. So the thinking is that we're never going to be back up at 12 again. We're never going to be picking that high in the very near future. That's the hope. Yeah. So this is our chance to get a potential quarterback to replace Jimmy G. So the more I thought about it, the more I actually quite liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of blew the doors away. But like you say, you've kind of got most of your pieces all set. That defensive line is monster, and the quarterback is probably I wouldn't have said it was the missing piece. That said, Jimmy G hasn't been as available as he probably needs to be. And then I guess if you really look at it, the unintended consequence of the rookie salary cap just means that they can control a first-round quarterback. So for 5 years, and then technically 7 years, at least at a cost that is coming. So, and let's be fair, the number one pick has never been on the table. I think everyone's been super clear. I'm sure every GM phoned just in case. But I would imagine that was a swift no chance. And obviously, hopefully for us in the UK, that's going to be amazing because if Jacksonville come here every year, then in some respects we've got a new quarterback to watch. And then it kind of became really clear that the Jets are not moving out of 2. Again, I thought they may be available, but I think this move to 3 shows that the Jets were never moving. So let's talk about the quarterback. Who do you think they're going to take?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because you're right, Trevor Lawrence, no chance, obviously. And it's looking more and more like Zach Wilson's going to the Jets, which, some people would have suggested, maybe they'll keep Donald. But if we're willing to trade up to 3, the Jets would be absolutely crazy not to get in the person they want when they're picking at 2. So it's looking like Zach Wilson's gone as well. So that's leaving us with Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. The popular opinion appears to be Mac Jones. And he's someone who fits well into a scheme. He's got the throws. He's not supremely athletic, although that's coming from a 43-year-old white fat dude. So, take that with a pinch of salt. But, when you're talking about the other 2, you talk about Trey Lance, who's seen as this dual threat. He's maybe not as accurate as things stand as Mac Jones. And then, you've got kind of safe in the middle with Justin Fields. It's almost like you've got a high floor with Mac Jones. You know what you're going to get out of him. He's going to be consistent. He's going to be accurate. You've got the unknown of Trey Lance with the added possibility that he might be a Kyler Murray or someone like that, someone who can really change the way the offense looks. And then you've got that middle ground with Justin Fields. And again, that's maybe really, really unfair to Justin Fields. But I think a lot of it depends on what we're thinking of doing with Jimmy G. If we are looking to trade away Jimmy G, which is that's not the sounds the 49ers are making. They're happy for Jimmy G to be there. They've budgeted for the $25 million contract that he's got in place. And they see it as a competition or worst case scenario, a bridge. So the writing's on the wall for Jimmy G, but he has the ability to beat out the rookie if he's good enough. So if we're looking at a bridge, then you start thinking Trey Lance, because this gives him the year to sit. This gives him the year to learn behind Jimmy G. This gives him a year to work on the accuracy, get to know how the NFL works, get to know what Kyle Shanahan's going to do with him, and also probably get some snaps. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, although it bloody well feels like it, that Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, if you remember what happened there, yeah. Alex Smith was the person in the position, but every now and again, you drop in Kaepernick to just stretch the legs and give it a bit of a run. Well, it's starting to look a wee bit familiar here. So, yeah, I'm thinking the popular seems to be Mac Jones, although it is totally smokescreen season in the NFL. That could just be the message the 49ers want to get out there so that nobody tries to trade up even further. But it's so difficult to tell. Of the three of them, it depends what the 49ers want to get out of them.
Yeah, I think the best thing for the 49ers is it seems that the brain trust of Lynch and Shanahan seem to be set. And I often think that's the most important thing. I wasn't one that knew huge amounts about Patrick Mahomes before he came out. I was probably a bit of a naysayer when they were going to, they decided they were going to trade away Alex Smith from the Chiefs. But obviously that worked out. But if you look at their setup, Andy Reid has great history, and their whole organization kind of set. And I would say the 49ers are along the same lines. John Lynch seems to, for someone that didn't have this job previously or hadn't worked his way up through this kind of role, he seems to have very solid footballing beliefs, but he seems very pliable in the sense of, again, hire smart people around you, or I know they came together and kind of rely on all of the information. And I think I'm with you. I think it was Dan Orlovsky of ESPN said, beginning of the week, that that Mac Jones would fit best for the 49ers. And he was talking about 12. And he said they could be in a great position. He'll sit nicely at 12 for them and they'll take him. He said it days before the trade. It just feels like the train is kind of moving on him. But it's, if you listen to Dan, who had worked with Carl beforehand, there is a clear philosophy. And there's clear reasoning. He worked with Matt Ryan. There's a similarity. He doesn't necessarily need a mobile quarterback, although I'm sure if he gave him one, he would be able to utilize him. So it seems like Matt Jones may be the guy. Obviously, Justin Fields and Matt Jones, not they, but the teams decided to have the pro days on the same day. So you kind of had Matt Jones with a big arm, doesn't move as smoothly, let's say. And then you had Justin Fields. I think he ran a 4.44. He looked athletic. He also threw the same pass as Wilson did, or a similar one as Wilson, that everyone are kind of raving about. I know this is kind of funny season. This is a crazy time. Look, I think you've got the right brain trust in place. So I think either quarterback or any of the quarterbacks will sit. I wonder if Jimmy G stays, will they go Lance? Will they let him sit for a year? I think Jimmy's only got 1 year left, or potentially even re-up Jimmy at a good price for a second year. And again, I know everyone's talking about possibly New England coming back in on Jimmy. So there still seems to be some business for the 49ers to do, which makes no sense whatsoever. But let's just quickly finish up on the compensation you paid. Are you kind of happy with what you gave up?
Well, I mean, put it this way: if you were going to be promised to get, say, a Deshaun Watson before all of the, shall we say, troubles, if you were going to get Deshaun Watson, would 2 first-round picks, would you bulk at that? Of course you wouldn't. Hell, 3, 4. You take as much as you want. If you give me a franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 12 years, then you can have my first round picks for 3 to 4 if that's what it takes. There's no price on a franchise quarterback, especially when you have, as you mentioned, you have the brain trust that we've got in place. The fact is that we've had one good season without too many injuries. The other 2 seasons have been really, really scuppered, whether it's been Jimmy G going down, whether it's been half the bloody squad going down like it was last year. So you give us a healthy squad with what we've already got in place. You give Kyle Shanahan the tools. I'm confident that those 2 picks are going to be in the high 20s to early 30s with the right people in place. And if that's the case, yeah, it'll be a great deal. Now, of course, if we have another bad season, if you look at our division, when the quarterbacks are Matt Stafford, Kyler Murray, and I forget the other one. What is it? Russell Wilson, if he doesn't go to the Bears.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, I've heard he's got a wee bit of a future. But when you look at that division, then okay, Jimmy G, whilst I do rate him and I do like him, I think he's one of the most laid-back characters in the whole of the NFL. You got to say, yeah, okay, possibly we need to up our game at quarterback. And if one of these 3 guys is the answer to those 3, then there's no cost that's not worth paying. And as you said, Lynch and Shanahan seem to be on the same page. They're confident. They're trusting in the squad that they've already got. They're saying this is where we need to improve. This is the wee step up that we're confident we can take us to the Super Bowl. And it might not be this year. Maybe it's next year. So be it. We got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. We're happy with Jimmy G if that's the case. The more I thought about it, like I said, the better I feel. I would have loved to have seen us pick up a bit of cornerback help, because I think that's our biggest need, especially losing Sherman, who was very much a coach on the field. Now you look at our cornerbacks, and I just would have liked a couple of free agency pickups in the cornerback position just to help out that front 7. It's all well and good getting after the quarterback, but if the wide receivers are open all the way down the field after 1 second, then we're not that quick to get to the quarterback, So yeah, there's still some business to be done. But the more I've thought about this, if you trust in Lynch and Shanahan, then you've got to like the move. It doesn't matter what the cost is. If we get the right quarterback and if he's the real deal, so be it. But ask me again in 2 years.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, I think it's listen, I think everyone's talking about it being the hardest division to kind of escape from. There are quarterbacks all over the place. The Rams are constantly making moves. The Seahawks, and now we're hoping obviously fans will be back. The Seahawks should be in a better place, I guess. I still think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to Russell. And so
strange situation with the Seahawks, isn't it? It's really weird. They seem to for the first start of the season, they were letting Russell cook. I think that's the term they were using, wasn't it? Let him cook.
Yeah.
And he looked apart. And then just a huge deterioration. And now it's almost like the discussion is between Russell Wilson or Pete Carroll. Who goes?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot happens when you're not, when those type of alpha males are not in the room together. Let's see what happens when they actually get back and they get in the room. I would imagine there'll be a day 1 meeting. There'll be some F's and Jeffs, and they'll be all right. And I heard something the other day, actually, the Cardinals saying that Kingsley was on the hot seat. He was one of the coaches on the hot seat. Hot seat?
Already?
I mean, he's got a very nice seat if you remember the draft from last year, but I can't see how he's on the hot seat.
It seems very, very harsh considering how far they've come along. Obviously, their expectations are higher, but as you say, in this division, it's difficult. Even us on a really down year with, again, half the squad injured, we're a difficult team to beat. So this, you can look at other divisions and say they may be harder to escape from for different reasons. Cowboys, Redskins, Eagles, Giants. I'm looking at you, but that's because they're crap. Sorry, fans. But, you look at our division, and it's because we've got 4 strong teams who, especially with the extended season, I wonder whether we're going to get the first year with all 4 teams making it to the playoffs. Is that even possible?
I think I was trying to work it out. No, I don't think it is.
No,
I don't think it is. I don't think so. Someone has to miss out, and it's going to be interesting to see who. I think this is a pivotal season for all 4 teams. I do honestly think it's not so much changing coaches, but I think if a team clearly looks off, I think they're going to blow it. I think it's going to blow it all up and say, how are we going to go against? How are we going to go against the other 3s in the really short term, which again is why the 49ers move is really interesting. It's not a bad team. It had a bad season, mainly due to injuries. if you then add a kind of cost-controlled quarterback that is then successful, I think obviously the next 10 years, the sky's the limit. Of course, you still got to, I can't remember, you haven't done your paying out yet to Bosa and to Thomas, or they come in yet.
Bosa's still coming. I don't think Thomas is staying with us. I'll need to double check on that, but I've got a sneaking suspicion he's already gone. Because I'm not sure we took on his 5th year. But I need to double check on that. I don't know whether I read it or whether it was in a fever dream. With everything that's going on with the 49ers right now, it's difficult to keep up. But, we kept Armstead. We extended him. D Ford is still on contract. John Lynch was talking about, it's good to see him getting back to some kind of healthiness. Kinlow, we took in the last year's draft, he started to look the part towards the end of the season. So, again, our front seven just seems to keep getting stronger. But yeah, cornerback is, we seem to have went through a period where we drafted a safety every year.
Yeah.
And I don't think any of them are still with us. That's how bad it was. I think we re-signed Jacquees Tart just recently. But again, it's that secondary. If we can get that nailed on, then that defense just looks amazing. And Shanahan, you can trust him even with the dregs that we had with so much injury. There were guys I never even recognized. There were practice squad wide receivers having 100-yard games last year against Green Bay. So I do trust in Shanahan, and Lynch seems to take the majority of his steer from him, which is great. They're on the same book. So yeah, hopefully 10 to 12 years, Patrick Mahomes style quarterback where everybody says, yeah, best deal. What a bargain. Geniuses. Yeah. And long live the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the good one. I think there's a lot of offensive talent going to go early in the first round. I think that means that a lot of good defensive talent will drop out of the into the second round, into the third round, but just because of the way I think it's shaking up, and particularly that top 10 to 15 picks. So the 49ers they're a sneaky pick. I haven't picked my Super Bowl winner yet, but they're certainly weirdly in the conversation. And I do think, particularly if they keep Jimmy G, you'd be surprised how fit a player can get when they know they're all of a sudden their job is on the line, or even for a future trade as well. So
look at Jimmy G's history. I mean, he was brought in to be the kick up the arse for Tom Brady.
That's right.
So now he's got it the other way around. So yeah, I mean, fingers crossed. We also have a wee bit of history with in the 49ers for, shall we say, a more mobile quarterback coming in behind a quarterback who's a bit more pedestrian but quite accurate. So who knows? History repeating itself.
We will see. Thank you so much for joining me at this fantastic lunchtime. It's been amazing. First guest, even though you might not see you as the first guest, you're the first guest. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll catch up again.
Much appreciated, mate. Anytime.